Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashat Deshatarine Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Hare Krishna. Continuing to study and discuss from the 10th chapter, the Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. So far, the questions which were asked by Maharaj Parikshit, and in turn, the reference was given, the conversation between Brahmaji and Narad Muni, but the subject matter remains the same. It is all about creation. And here in this chapter, how creation unfolds in the sequence, step by step, is being detailed. So what we saw, the first, the Lord has a desire, and from that desire, the Adi Bhuta, or the gross sense organ, it manifests. And then the sense deity, or it is called the Adi Devaha, that controlling deity or the predominating deity of that particular sense, he also manifests. And how do they manifest? And also then the subtle sense organ. The subtle sense organ, it also manifests. And how they manifest? They manifest all simultaneously. It is not one after the other. It is immediately. As soon as the sun comes out, the heat and the light both comes out simultaneously. It is not that the heat comes first and then the light comes, or the light comes first and the heat comes. It is all done simultaneously. So anyone remembers how the sequence began? How the sequence of this creation unfolds? First, it is narrating about the knowledge acquiring senses. Which sense comes first in this section of Srimad Bhagavatam? Which sense comes first? Pradeep? You must revise. If you don't revise, see, study of Bhagavatam is not different from personal worship of Lord. Okay? So what kind of personal worship are we doing if we are not, putting attention? We are not engaging our faculties of mind and intelligence in this service. Okay, Sonika, you go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, first of all, mouth came Prabhuji.
Yeah. The Lord desired to drink and eat, and then the tongue, jivha. Jivha, and of course, the sense object is water, and which has taste. And who is the predominating deity?
Prabhuji, Varun Dev.
Simple. For water, it is always Varun Dev. Varun Dev. Very good. Then, what next manifest? Manoram? What is the next manifestation? We want to know the creation, or we want to know the creator without putting any effort. Completely blank. Nothing is there in the memory. Why very few? Where is Dayāśīl Prabhu? Ramya? He has not returned?
No, Prabhuji. Not yet.
No, should not miss Bhagavatam. Quickly, what is the next manifestation? What manifests next? After Jiva taste, to drink and eat, what manifests next? Yes? Ravindra Prabhu?
Nose, Prabhu.
Nose? No. What is the next manifestation? Yeah, speech. Voice, vak. And who is the predominating deity?
Agnidev.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. So the next, the Lord desired to speak. Then Vak, Vacha. And Agnidev is the sense object is sound or voice. Next, what is the next manifestation? Priyanka?
Prabhuji, nose.
Nose. Nasika. To smell. The Lord desired to smell. And so the nose organ develops. And who is the predominating deity? Controlling deity?
Vayudev, Lord of air.
Nose.
Deity of air.
Nose. See, verse number 20, what is mentioned? Where is Vayu?
Deity of air.
What is mentioned? Read very properly.
Vayu. Yes, Ruchi, and the controlling deity of air, carrying smell, also become manifested. And the Sanskrit term here, grana, sense of smell,
Yes,
or a
grana
Vayu
is,
air.
yeah, grana is there. The smell is nasika, nose. Okay. Then next, which object manifest? Pradeep, you will answer or you will remain silent? What is the point in hearing if you don't participate? Okay. Answer at least one or two. What is the next manifestation?
Eyes, Prabhu.
Eyes. And who is the predominating deity for eyes?
God.
Surya. Surya. Okay, then next. Sonika?
Prabhuji, then ear was there.
Yes, Karna. And who is the predominating deities? So first all the knowledge acquiring senses, they come into action and then it is followed by the working senses. So please put, it is on every individual. How much there is keenness to know, to that extent he will put in the effort. And to the extent you put in the effort, to that extent only you will receive the result. Krishna has already clarified the principle. Ye yatha mam prapadyante. If you only come, you open your Zoom at 8:30 and here and 9:30 you are off and then you never open the book, then it is impossible. Okay, I move ahead. Which verse? 23rd was done. When there was a desire to perceive the physical characteristics of matter, such as softness, hardness, warmth, cold. So we did this. This is the sense of touch. Within and outside the skin, there is a covering of air through which the touch sensation becomes prominent. We've done this. 24th. Hastaruruhatastasya nana karma chikirshaya tayostu balvanindra adanam ubhayashraya. Thereafter, when the Supreme Person desired to perform varieties of work, so these are all working senses, the two hands and their controlling strength, and Indra, the demigod in heaven, became manifested. And also the acts dependent on both the hands and the demigods. So this is the manifestation of the working senses, the hand, and here the deity is mentioned as Indra. In every item we can note with profit that the sense organ of the living entity are never independent at any stage. The Lord is known as the Lord of the senses, Rishikesh. Thus the sense organ of the living entities are manifested by the will of the Lord. And each organ is controlled by a certain type of demigod. No one, therefore, can claim any proprietorship of the senses. Very important. If you understand this, then the struggle for existence is over. That each organ is controlled by a certain type of demigod, therefore no one can claim any proprietorship of the senses. The living entity is controlled by the senses. The senses are controlled by the demigods, and the demigods are the servants of the Supreme Lord. That is the arrangement in the system of creation. The whole thing is controlled ultimately by the Supreme Lord, and there is no independence of either the material nature or the living entity. The illusion living entity who claims to be the Lord of his senses is under the clutches of the external energy of the Lord. As long as the living entity continues to be puffed up by his tiny existence, he is to be understood to be under the stringent control of the external energy of the Lord. And there is no question of liberation from the clutches of illusion Maya. However, much one may declare himself a liberated soul. So Prabhupada gives this entire cycle. So Prabhupada says that the living entity is controlled by the senses, senses are controlled by the demigods, and demigods are the servant of the Supreme Lord. So this is the arrangement of the system of entire creation. So the final control is with the Supreme Absolute Truth. Next verse. Gatim jigishita pado ruruhate abhikamikam padhavyam yagne swayam havyam karma bhi kriyate nirbhi. Thereupon, because of his desiring to control movement, his legs became manifested, and from the legs the controlling deity named Vishnu was generated. Wow. Lord Vishnu. By his personal supervision of this act, all varieties of human beings are busily engaged in the dutiful occupational sacrifice. Please note, all varieties of human beings. And how many varieties of human beings? All varieties of human beings. Okay, 3 people only. Why? Everyone should be knowing. Riyanshi, how many varieties of human beings are there?
4 lakh, Prabhuji.
Very good. Very good. 400,000 or 4 lakh. Every human being is engaged in his particular occupational duty. And such activities are visible as men go hither and thither. This is very prominently visible in big cities of the world. People are going all over the cities with great concern from one place to another. This movement is not limited only to the cities, but is also visible outside the cities from one place to another or from one city to another by different vehicles. Men are moving by cars and trains, on the surface, by subways, within the earth, and by planes in the sky for the purpose of business success. In all this movement, the real purpose is to earn wealth for comfortable life. For this comfortable life, the scientist is engaged the artist is engaged, the engineer is engaged, the technician is engaged, all in different branches of human activities. But they do not know how to make the activities purposeful to fulfill the mission of human life. Because they do not know the secret, all their activities are targeted towards the goal of sense gratification without control. And therefore, by all this business, they are unknowingly entering into the deep regions of darkness. Because they have been captivated by the external energy of the Supreme Lord, they have completely forgotten the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and thus they have taken it for granted that this life is presently manifested under the conditions of material nature, is all in all for enjoying the highest amount of sense gratification. But such a wrong conception of life cannot give anyone the desired peace of mind. And thus, in spite of all advancement in knowledge by use of the resources of nature, no one is happy in this material civilization. The secret is that at every step, they should try to execute sacrifice towards the path of world peace. The Bhagavad Gita 8:45-46 is also advised the same secret in the following verses. Swe swe karmani abhirata samsiddhim labate nara swakarma nirita suddham yatha vindati takshunu yatha pravartirbhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. The Lord said to Arjuna, just hear from me how one can attain the highest perfection of life simply by discharging his specified occupational duty. Man can attain the highest perfection of life by worshipping the Supreme Lord and by performing sacrifice. For the sake of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is all pervading and by whose control every living being acquires his desired facilities according to his personal propensity. There is no harm in having different propensities in life because every human being is proportionately independent to chalk out the plan of his life by different occupation. But one should make it a point in his life to know perfectly well that he is not independent absolutely. Prabhupada is emphasizing this point again and again. Unless and until a person is insane or he is imbalanced, he cannot claim that he is independent. But Prabhupada is saying, but one should make it a point in his life to know perfectly well that he is not independent absolutely. One is certainly under the control of the Supreme Lord and under different agencies. Knowing this, one should make it a point by his work and the result of his labor. He serves the Supreme Lord as prescribed by the authorities, expert in transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Vishnu. For performing such occupational duties of life, the leg is the most important instrument of body because without the help of the legs, one cannot even move from one place to another. And therefore the Lord has special control over the legs of all human beings which are meant for performing yajna. Nirbhidyata Shishnova Prajananda Amrita Arthina Upasta Ashit Kamanam Priyam Tadubhayashrayam. Thereupon, for sexual pleasure, begetting offsprings, and tasting heavenly nectar, the Lord developed genitals, and thus there is a genital organ and its controlling deity, the Prajapati. Sexual pleasure and its controlling deity are under the control of the genitals of the Lord. The heavenly pleasure for the conditioned soul is sexual pleasure. And this pleasure is tasted by the genitals. The woman is the object of sexual pleasure, and both the sense perception of sexual pleasure and the woman are controlled by the Prajapati, who is under the control of the Lord's genitals. The impersonalist must know from this verse that the Lord is not impersonal, for he has his genitals on which all the pleasurable objects of sex depend. No one would have taken the trouble to maintain children if there was no taste of heavenly nectar by the means of sexual intercourse. This is the point of everyone being bound by this Maithunagar. In Srimad Bhagavad Gita, in the 3rd chapter, Prabhupada writes that everyone is shackled by the invisible chain of this sex pleasure, which is called Maithunagar. And why it works? Because there is some reflection of the heavenly pleasure. The Prabhupada is so practically saying no one would have taken the trouble to maintain children if there were no taste of heavenly nectar by means of sexual intercourse. This material world is created to give the conditioned soul a chance for rejuvenation, for going back home, back to Godhead. And therefore, generations of the living being is necessary for upkeep of the purpose of creation. Sexual pleasure is an impetus for such action, and as such, one can even serve the Lord in the act of such sexual pleasures. The service is counted when the children born of such sexual pleasure are properly trained in God consciousness. This is the sum and substance of a grihastha ashram life. That the children are properly trained in Krishna consciousness. The whole idea of material creation is to revive the dormant God consciousness of the living entity in forms of life other than the human form. Sexual pleasure is prominent without any motive of service for the mission of the Lord. But it is the human form of life, the conditioned soul, can render service to the Lord by creating progeny suitable for the attainment of salvation. One can beget hundreds of children and enjoy the celestial pleasure of sexual intercourse, provided he is able to train the children in God consciousness. Otherwise, begetting children is on the level of the swine. Who gave this comparison? Otherwise, begetting children is on the level of swine. Who gave this analogy? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Sachi Devi, his mother, that unless and until your sons become Krishna conscious or they serve the Supreme Lord, then what is the use of becoming a mother? That mother is like equivalent to being a sukari, which gives hundreds of offsprings. Rather, the swine is more expert than the human being. Prabhupada goes even a step further. Swine is more expert than the human being. The swine can beget a dozen piglets at a time, whereas the human being can give birth only one at a time. So one should always remember that the genitals, sexual pleasure, the woman and the offspring are all related in the service of the Lord. And one who forgets this relationship in the service of the Lord becomes subjected to the threefold miseries of material existence by the laws of nature. Perception of sexual pleasure is there even in the body of the dog, but there is no sense of God consciousness. The human form of life is distinct from that of the dog by the perception of God consciousness. Utsikrisho dhatu malam nirbhidyate vaigudam tatha payus tatho mitra Utsarga Abhayashraya. Thereafter, when he desired to evacuate the refuse of eatables, the evacuating whole anus and the sensory organ thereof developed along with the controlling deity Mitra. The sensory organ and the evacuating substance are both under the shelter of the controlling deity. Even in the matter of evacuating stool, the refuse is controlled. Everyone has this experience. Yes, no? Whenever you want, can you clear your stomach? No. We have to depend. We have to depend on that controlling deity. Everything is controlled. So how can the living entity claim to be independent? This Prabhupada is asking. Even in the matter of evacuating stool, the refuse is controlled. So how can the living entity claim to be independent? Ashishripo pura purya nabhidvaram apanata tatra panastato mrityu pithaktvam ubhayarashraya. Thereafter, when he desired to move from one body to another, the navel and the air of departure and death were combined created. The navel is the shelter for both, namely death and the separating force. The pran vayu continues the life and the apan vayu stops the living force. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Pana apana samayukta. Prana apana samayukta. Equivalence the both. Pran vayu continues the life and apan vayu stops the living force. Both the vibrations are generated from the abdominal hole, the navel. The navel is the joint from one body to another. Lord Brahma was born of the abdominal hole of Garbhodakshai Vishnu as a separate body. And the same principle is followed even in the birth of an ordinary body, of any ordinary body. The body of the child develops from the body of the mother, and when the child is separated from the body of the mother, it is separated by cutting the navel joint. It is called the umbilical cord. क्या कहते हैं इसको? नाल. नाल हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं? Umbilical cord. And that is the way Supreme Lord manifested himself as separated many. The living entities are therefore separated parts, and thus they have no independence. So the entire creation is confirming this point, that how at every step the living entity is controlled, is not independent. Aditsho annapananam asankukshi antra nadaya nadaya samudrascha tayos tushti pushti stadashaye. When there was a desire to have food and drink, the abdomen and the intestines and also the arteries become manifested. The rivers and seas are the sources of their sustenance and metabolism. Desire to have food and drink, it was the first one. Desire to eat and drink. And here again it is being said in the 29th verse. The rivers and seas are the sources of their sustenance and metabolism. The controlling deities of the intestines are the rivers, and those of the arteries, the seas. Filling the belly with food and drink is the cause of sustenance, and metabolizing the food and drink replenishes the bodily energies. Therefore, the body's health is dependent on healthy actions of the intestines and the arteries. The rivers and the seas, being the controlling deity of the two, keep the intestine and the arteries in healthy order. Nidhidasyoratmamayam hridayam nirbhedyata tato manas chandra iti sankalpa karma evacha, sorry. Tato manas chandra iti sankalpa kama evacha. When there was the desire to think about the activities of his own energy, then the heart, the seat of the mind. See, here Srimad Bhagavatam is confirming. Where is the mind? It is in the heart. Then the heart, the seat of the mind, the moon, determination, and all desire becomes manifested. When there was a desire to think about the activities of his own energy, then the heart, the seat of the mind, the moon, determination, and all desire became manifested. The heart of every living entity is the seat of the super soul, Paramatma, a plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without his presence, the living entity cannot get into the working energy according to his past deeds. The living entities who are conditioned in the material world are manifested in the creation in terms of respective inclinations inherent in them. And the requisite material body is offered to each and every one of them by the material energy under the direction of the super soul. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 9:10. What is 9:10? Very famous verse. Who remembers 9:10 without referring the Bhagavad Gita? Manoram Prabhu? No one. 9:10 नहीं पता किसी को. How is it possible? Yes, Ramya.
कृष्ण प्रभु जी मया अध्यक्षेण प्रकृति सूयते सचराचर.
Yes. It is under the direct control and supervision of the Supreme Lord. Maya adhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharachara. Hetu nanena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. When therefore the super soul is situated in the heart of the conditioned soul, the requisite mind is manifested in the conditioned soul. And he becomes conscious of his occupation as one is conscious of his duties after waking up from slumber. Therefore, the material mind of the living entity develops when the super soul sits on his heart. Very important. That he becomes conscious of his occupation at once. Is conscious of his duty after waking up from slumber. Therefore, the material mind of the living entity develops when the super soul sits on his heart, after which the mind and the controlling deity moon, and then the activities of the mind, namely thinking, feeling, and willing, all take place. The activities of the mind cannot begin without the manifestation of the heart. The activities of the mind cannot begin without the manifestation of the heart, And the heart becomes manifested when the Lord wants to see the activities of the material creation. So I'll stop here. Okay, I'll wind up. I'm not able to continue. If there is any question, we will continue tomorrow. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे। हरे हरे।